Good morning, students. Welcome back to my channel, Molecular Mysteries. So, in this class, in the coming classes, let's talk about cancer. What are the carcinogens? What are the types of viruses that cause cancer? What are the areas where the body gets affected due to tumor? And what are the phases? What are the types of cancers? Let's all discuss in detail in the coming classes. So, in this class, let's restrict this class to about the basics of your cancer. So, what are the basics? How actually the cancer starts, and what are the stages? What are the terms and that you come across when you talk about oncology, when you talk about carcinogens and all. Okay. So, without any further delay, let's get into the class. So, in the thumbnail you have seen this class. Let's talk about the cancer. So, what is cancer? So, cancer is something which is a small alteration that is happening in the DNA. It could be mutation, or it could be cell proliferation. Generally what happens, you all know that cells generally grow through a programmed cell death called apoptosis. That is how the cell number is maintained in the body. Then cell has to actually proliferate. It has to undergo survival, differentiation. So all this should properly happen in a normal individual. But what is happening in the people with cancer suffering people, they generally have an altered DNA or mutation that attacks a particular DNA of a cell. That is how the cellular level, if I talk about at a molecular level, at a cellular level, the whole cell signaling pathway, or the cell transcription, translation, protein production, or whatever the methods that we have studied till now, what happens in the cell signaling, or whatever it is, the processes that metabolize in the cell, the process that should undergo for a human, they get altered. That is how it happens in cancer. So small alteration will lead to a big change for cancer, which leads to metastasis. So now let's come across what are the terms that we frequently use in cancer, or you can say in oncology. So what is actually a tumor? So first of all, the cell starts multiplying abnormally. So generally the cells should fall a cell cycle, right? Every cell should follow a cell cycle where it keeps on increasing, and finally it undergoes a cell death called apoptosis. So this is how the cell number is being maintained in the cells, and that is how the metabolic pathways are being controlled in our body. But what happens in a tumor? So tumor is nothing but an abnormal proliferation of cells, which could be either benign or a malignant. So before that, so the mass of cells, I can say this particular mass of cells could be either benign or it could be a malignancy. What happens is, the benign is the one which is restricted to particular area. Like if you say a small skin condition like warts that have seen you, that you have gone for a biopsy, right? So there they tested that it is a benign one which doesn't have the capacity to get metastasized. What is metastasized? Metastasis is a condition where it has the capacity to enter into the circulatory system and get moved to all the neighboring cells, tissues, and the whole body. If that particular benign tumor doesn't have that, if that particular tumor cell doesn't have that capacity, then it is called a benign tumor, which is restricted to that particular tissue or particular organ, and that can be easily surgically removed, right? That is what you call a benign tumor. When you come to malignancy, so that is where the term called cancer comes up, right? So malignancy is termed as cancer because that particular tumor has the capacity to move all the body, around the body, into the connective tissue, into any tissues and neighboring organs, right? So that is how the cancer is termed, because most of the cancers are all malignant, right? They call it cancer only when it is malignant. Now see, I told you the malignancy tumors have the capability of invading the surrounding tissues, and also they have the capacity to spread throughout the body. That is how it is different. Now let's talk about, based on the type of cell affecting that particular person, the cancers are termed in three different ways. It's like, because you have many body cells in our body, right? So based on the type of cell the tumor is forming, then, or the malignant tumor is forming, we can divide the cancer into three terms, mainly the sarcoma, carcinoma, and the leukemia and the lymphoma. So name itself says carcinoma. Most of, I can say 95% of the human cancers are mainly due to carcinoma, because the malignant tumors mainly affect the epithelial cells of the human body, right? So these are the most common cancers in humans. And if you go for the sarcoma, this is actually very rare in humans, but it generally affects the connective tissue like muscle tissue, like bone tissue. Okay, generally those areas get affected, that is called the sarcoma, right? And if you talk about the leukemia, it is all about the cells, body cells, tumor affecting that particular body cells. So you know that we have the pluripotent cells which undergo division at bone marrow, right? So in the coming classes I anyway talk about the immunology, where you come across how the different type of cells are produced from the bone marrow, right? You have erythroid lineage, right? So there you come across leukocyte formation also. So there, if anything happens or alteration happens in that area, then that leads to the leukemia, right? Increase of your white blood cell production. And lymphoma, so even that is also a blood cell lineage cancer. Okay, these are the based on the type of cells, based on the location of the cells. The cancers are mainly divided into carcinoma, sarcoma, and leukemia and lymphoma. Okay, now let's see in detail about the development of cancer. So in this class I am restricting to a basics. Okay, next class I'll talk about the proto-oncogenes, type of viruses that attacks, which type of virus attacks which part. Okay, I will talk in detail anyway in the next class. So in this class let's talk about the development of cancer. For example, if you see this as a normal cell and this particular purple as a newly developed mutant cancer cell, the first and primary requirement of the cell to become cancerous is capacity to undergo more and more cell division without following any signal from the cell. So what happens is the particular cancer cell generally gets differentiated from other cells based on its cell to cell interaction and to cell to matrix interaction, because see, generally all the cells are adjacent to each other in a normal human being, but if particular one cell is affected by mutation, or it could be due to carcinogen or whatever like that, that particular mutant cell is generally more rounded in shape, right? Doesn't have any proper cell to cell interaction which is required for a normal cell. So that is how it can differentiate from the other cells. So the motto for the development of normal cell into a cancer cell, for change of that particular normal cell to cancer cell, the cell should have the complete growth of the unproliferative growth of cells happening without any following any cell signaling, like it doesn't have any rule to pass, so it keeps on increasing its size, cell proliferation keeps on going, right? So that is a main for the tumor at the early stage to development. It starts to change the descendant cells also to become into a tumor producing cells, capacity to undergo more and more cell division. That is the main. So first, that it has a tumor, the two important conditions that a cancer cell need is tumor clonality and clonal selection. Means the descendant cells will also become cancerous, undergoing unlimited cell division. That is how the tumor clones first start. Clone is a group of cells which become tumorous, right? So clonal selection happens how this particular purple cell will make the other cell descendant cells also to become more and more proliferative. So they'll also make the cells to, it also produces some cell signaling factors, growth stimulating factors. Generally the normal cells produce growth stimulating factors for a normal healthy individual. And apart from that, the tumor cells also have the capacity to produce many growth factors which help for their own. It could be angiogenesis. So this term you keep on hearing in the cancer topics, because angiogenesis is a condition where there is a development of supply of blood to your particular tumor. Right? If a particular tumor is developing, first it will be in benign stage because it is easily localized to that particular area. Once it starts increasing its size and increasing the number of cells and proliferation starts, it keeps on entering into a connective tissue, finally breaking the connective tissue and entering into a circulatory part, like circulatory system called blood. That is how it is detected in the blood through the cancer markers. Right? So when it enters into the connective tissue and enters into the blood, that it forms a full capillaries, like it forms a small blood vessels by itself, making the tumor to grow well, because every tumor needs a blood supply for their growth and for the nutrition. right? There have to be a vascularization, or there have to be a blood vessel supplying to that particular newly formed tumor. For that, they need to have growth factors produced by themselves. The growth factors would also help them to produce angiogenesis, thus making tumor more and more active. So upon more and more supply of blood to the particular tumor cell, it keeps on increasing. And you know what, why the cancer patients are becoming weak and weak? Because the main supply of blood, instead of going to the other organs for your normal requirement and for oxygenation and for all your purification and all, this particular blood is going towards your tumor cells, and it is taking the whole, it is diverting the whole blood supply towards the tumor. That is how the person, although the blood supply is well in the healthy individual, still is becoming weak. Maybe because it could be the sign that the tumor got vascularized. That is how it is getting the power from the blood for the supply, right? Hope you got my point. That is how the clonal selection happens. It keeps on increasing the cells by the descendant cells, keeps on increasing and proliferating happens. This is how the development of cancer happens in the two different stages. And before I talk about what are the cancer causing agents, I want to show you one thing. How its cell is been converted into a cancer cell. So like how it generally happens at a cellular level, I want to show you. Yes, so cancer cell development. So this is I want to talk to you. Stages of tumor development. It has two different stages. One is the initiation stage and second is the proliferation stage. So any tumor development mainly occurs due to the mutation that is happening in the cell. It could be the cell proliferation, or it could be the DNA alteration, or it could be some cancer causing carcinogens that attack the normal cells. So when it undergoes a mutation, a particular cell, I'm showing it in the red color, it starts undergoing the cell proliferation, and this particular cell initiation gets entered into the proliferation stage, where the initial tumor cell population starts, and it keeps on undergoing more and more mutations, where the variant cells nearby the tumor cells also will become the cell to get capacity to multiply itself. So that is how the variant cell starts increasing its number, and they finally get attached to the tumor, forming a hard mass of cells, right? So if more and more rapidly growing variant cells keep on increasing, this turns out to be a malignancy, right? So once it is having a malignancy character, it would obviously have a full supply of blood to it, thus it leading more and more, becoming more and more active, right? So this is how the stages of tumor development happens. And one more thing here I want to specify is that I don't know whether I have time to talk about it, but let me talk about it. Okay, see, now let me talk about, what I want to talk about is, we have X chromosomes, right? We know that females, like if you talk about females, you have XX, right? I have two copies of X chromosome. And please remember, what happens in the normal cells is that the X chromosome inactivation, this is the main term that you come across in cancer cells. What is X chromosome inactivation? This X chromosome inactivation during the embryonic development, okay, during embryonic development, what happens is this X chromosome inactivation is random. Means, for example, if you have a gene that controls height, I'm talking about the gene that controls height. So height is mainly controlled by two different alleles. So if you're not well about genetics, please go through the channel links that I have given you in the description. So if height is the main character that I'm talking about, you have two different alleles, which is tall and which is short. So some chromosomes express this and some chromosomes express this, because you know that female X chromosomes are heterozygous, right? They are heterozygous. So either some alleles express the same gene, and some cells end up having expressing only one allele, and some express only few alleles. So these are the alleles, right? So some express in that way. X chromosome inactivation is random in normal individuals, because some cells express one type of allele in X chromosomes, some cells express one type of another type of allele in other chromosomes. But what happens in a X chromosome for a cancer patients? Let's talk about cancer. What happened? This X chromosome inactivation in cancer is fixed. What does it mean by fixed? There is no expression of one of the alleles. So one of the alleles of a chromosome is completely masked and it is fixed. That is how the X chromosome inactivation is happening in the cancer cell. That is just to remember. I'm just telling you may come across this X inactivation chromosome. So that is further I have discussed about it. Okay, if you want to have any doubt, if you have any doubt, please let me know in the comment section. Okay, now let's see what are the cancer causing agents. So I told you the substances that cause cancer are the carcinogenic agents, and they are, it could be radiation, like UV radiation. So if you have direct exposure of UV radiation to the skin, it leads to skin cancer, that you have already well aware of. You have many chemicals which are, when working in chemical industries and chemical factories, there are many people who are getting exposed to many dangerous chemicals leading to skin cancers again. And you have viruses, like if you have to take hepatitis virus, it is attacking the liver, like ending up with hepatocellular carcinoma, HCC. Okay, these are all the types of cancers and cancer causing agents. Now let's talk about that. There are direct relation, I can say about one thing. So when I talk about why smoking is very dangerous, if you want to know about smoking, I am also attaching direct link of cancer through smoking. So cancer through smoking, 95% cancers are coming through smoking. It's a direct effect you have due to cigarettes and all. You have cigars and all, which mainly contain many dangerous chemicals, like I can say mainly it contains nickel, it contains benzopyrene, okay, and you have dimethyl nitrosamine. So these are the main important carcinogenic agents that the cigarettes have, which is leading to 95% of lung cancers. So not only that, you have esophagus cancer, you have throat cancer, right? The whole respiratory system is getting affected due to smoking. So they have direct links also. So these are all the dangerous carcinogens in smoking. Okay, and radiation, chemical, viruses. Okay, in the coming class I will talk about what are the types of viruses which affect the body parts. Now let's talk about the tumor promoters. Yes, apart from apart from altering the DNA, apart from forming a mutation in the normal cells, there are some cells which would promote the tumor. They are called the tumor promoters. Like, anyway, I told you some carcinogenic agents contribute cancer by stimulating cell proliferation rather than inducing mutation. Just now I told you, not only DNA alteration, not only inducing mutations, some carcinogenic agents stimulate the cancer by producing or increasing the cell proliferation. For example, if you take an example of protein kinase. See, what is protein kinase? See, protein kinase is something which helps in cell signaling pathway. Okay, it helps in, I can say, immune response. It is a positive pathway, like, right? It has to undergo it, and also neuro transmitter, I can say. So these are all the basic steps that should happen in a normal cell. So protein kinase is generally activated in a normal cell. But what happens? You have a compound called Farbol ester. This particular group of compounds, what they do is they will mimic the activity of your protein kinase C. Okay, forming analogs. Okay, they instead of binding to the protein kinase C, they form analogs which look alike, right? Like, and they produce, instead of undergoing a normal cell cycle, they make the activity favorable for the tumor cell formation. Instead of doing a normal cell activity, protein kinase C stimulates the tumor cell proliferation by metastasis, by angiogenesis. Okay, so actually protein kinase C plays a major role in cell signaling and all. But what is formoterol, which is a carcinogen, doing? It is mimicking its activity, right? So instead of binding to diacylglycerol, see diacyl. So what formoester does is it analogs with the diacylglycerol. Actually, diacylglycerol, when it binds protein kinase C, it generally immediately does the normal cell activity. But this formoester forms the analogs of diacylglycerol, thus mimicking the activity of protein kinase C, which is favoring the formation of tumor by metastasis and angiogenesis. Hope I am clear with the concept of protein kinase C. If you have any doubt, please let me know. Okay, so maybe the class is little increasing, but still time, please bear with me, because I have much knowledge regarding the cancer I want to talk about. Okay, and one more thing, so cell proliferation done by activating the protein kinase I told you. And one more important thing is hormones like estrogen. This is a different thing to listen about. See, estrogen, I told you, is a major important hormone for ladies for your menstrual cycle and for your endometrial formation during your ovulation, right? So during a menstrual cycle you have an endometrium formation, and for later on it gets shed away, right? So this endometrium formation is mainly due to the presence of your estrogen in the first half of your cycle, right? In the first half of your cycle, this endometrial formation is must for your future baby holding, or in future if it is going for menstruation, it has to come out, right? Shedding should happen. This estrogen is playing the major role. But what happens, this estrogen, if you are taking more and more amount of estrogen, than, for example, let me say that once the lady has entered into a menopause, so but menopause, she is having many difficulties regarding menopause, and she has gone for a hormonal therapy. What is hormonal therapy? They are taking hormones like estrogen, injecting hormones. So when they are taking more and more amount of hormones, what happens, the endometrium layer keeps on increasing for that particular lady, right? And also this may leads to endometrial cancer in future upon the increase of estrogen. At the same time, it also leads to breast cancer. So that is how the hormones like estrogen is also acting as a tumor promoter. Estrogen at a lower amount or normal amount is must for a lady, but if it is more than the required level, it turns out to be cancerous in breast formation, breast form, or it could be in the endometrial cancer or the cervical cancer, right? So these are the tumor promoters that I want to talk about. Hope I am not boring the class. In the coming class, I will talk about the types of cancers and types of viruses that affect the cancer. So thank you and have a nice day.